Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McCusick. We're here for a special episode this week, projecting regression and breakout for three Ravens each, and we're going to work down a list. Joining me for this process is Brandon Croxton. Brandon, how you doing?
Hey, Ken, it's always great to talk to you.
It
A
is
lot
a
of
little
fun
bit.
doing these.
I'm getting a little bit of cloudiness there from your talk, but we'll work our way through it. I think it'll work out as this show goes on. So you came to me with this idea. This is just the kind of great idea I love to hear from anybody on, and wanted to talk about players who would regress and break out. And when we each agreed to have a list of three we made, always reverse order as we do on this show and a lot of things. But would you like to start with regression or start with breakout? Kind of the bad news before the good news?
Yeah, let's go with the bad news first.
All right, very good. So we can talk about honorable mentions that I know from our production meeting, you had a couple of honorable mentions. Now, we did not set this up, but unbelievably, we do not have one player that was common to either of our lists, which is frankly amazing for lists of regression and breakout, in a season, because a lot of times you have the same, you have a lot of overlap and those kind of things. Start us off with your number three guy.
Okay, my number three is Michael Pierce. He will be 31 this fall. And really, I think I put him on the regression list just for the mere fact that injuries might have taken their toll on him and his ability to just stay on the field. The last time he played 8 games in a season was 2019. Yeah, that right there, puts a lot of red flags up. He was out for the year last year with a torn pec. He had a knee injury with Minnesota the year before in 2021. So a guy that big and with a big, huge frame like that, injuries can just start to wear down your body and just wear on you. The advantage that he does have is he is a big run stuffer, and athleticism and quickness has never been his strong suit and is not something that is the most important trait for his set of skills. But yeah, I do worry about him, wearing down and just being available on the field. I think the Ravens have to be careful about how they manage his snaps. I think he probably at this point needs to be just a run defender only. Put him out there on run downs. Maybe 20 to 25 snaps a game, but that's about it.
Okay, so let me think about 25 snaps. You're saying he played somewhere in the 30% range. That might be a little lower than I would want for him. Maybe I'd like to have about 42 to 44% of snaps, but we're not too far off in terms of where like. Here's what I'd say about Michael Pierce, and I respect what you're saying about him. Per snap, last year he was fine. In fact, he was outstanding for the game and a half or so he played before he got hurt. So I've seen a guy in camp who looks explosive still, very effective at the joint practices against the Commanders. He's one of the players who was pretty good on the day I watched the defense. I thought there's a lot to potentially like about Michael Pierce this season that I think could be good, but it's all dependent on if he can avoid injury. So he had a COVID year in there since 2019. And then he played, I think, about 8 games one season, or maybe it was even fewer than that. So yeah, it has been a tough road. He's been quite productive still on a per snap basis. Managing his snaps makes a lot of sense, and maybe I'm being too optimistic to think he can play high 30s or low 40s percentage of snaps. Maybe more realistic is 30%. And we'll see that. One thing the Ravens have on the defensive line that's going to test Pierce this year is I would expect him to have a lot more total defensive snaps. That won't be good for the defensive line in particular, who will probably have to play significantly more snaps. And that's the place where rotationally they are probably most stressed in terms of not having the players to play a lot of snaps. They've got 5 guys they want to have on the roster. They could bring Blackson and activate him, but it's probably going to be 5 guys active on most game days. And you're right on the money to say that rest and getting those guys the proper rotation is going to be difficult, and Pierce is a key element.
Right, exactly. Yeah, like you also want to watch Matabike. You kind of want to have him a lot on passing downs because he seemed to wear down with the additional snaps last year
Yeah.
towards the end of the year. So yeah, figuring out the proper balance for all of them is going to be important. But yeah, I just worry about Pierce, being able to hold up for a full season. We want him around in November and December and into January. So yeah.
Right. All right, I'll jump over to my number 3 guy on the regression list. I'm going to tell you in advance here, the players I'm picking for regression are not going to be popular with Ravens fans. And it's not that I dislike these players, and it's not that I really think these players are bad. It's that these players have played at such a high level before that regression would be expected. So, for example, I'm sure I would have picked Lamar Jackson as one of the biggest regressors after the 2019 season because no one in NFL history had as good a season, arguably, as Lamar had that year. So that would have been an unpopular choice. So let me start with my first of 3 unpopular choices in terms of regression, and that's J.K. Dobbins. Now, I think J.K. Dobbins could well have a good year, but the frame needs to be different for what constitutes a good year this year. It's not that there's been a contract holdout. I actually think he's entering the season fresh. He looks very sharp to me in terms of his footwork and whatnot that I've seen. I'm actually quite positive in terms of his health right now and how he'll be able to maintain himself. It's the shift to this 11 personnel run game that I think will hurt JK more than any other runner on the Ravens. So I think the Monken offense actually will be the person who unfortunately suffers most from the way this is run. He's being a guy who can get through into level 2, have your first contact opportunities be there, be a good contact balance guy, be a good cutback guy, exactly mesh with the Roman offense and the way they like to run the football and get people first contact opportunities in level 2. I just think, JK, if you're expecting 5.9 yards per season again, it won't happen, but that's what regression is. So if JK could be in the high 4s this year, I'd be very happy with it. I know other people won't be, but that's what regression is.
Sure. I think, yeah, I think him averaging 6 yards a carry like he was his first couple of years is, I mean, if he keeps that up, that's literally Hall of Fame level.
Above.
Especially, yeah, yeah. Jim Brown didn't average that. Barry Sanders didn't come close.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think that's really too much to expect. I like JK, not necessarily maybe as a breakout, but I do think he does have some things working in his favor as well, considering this is his second year removed from the knee injury. And really what we saw in 21 in him in training camp is he was looking like a star in the making. And he was catching passes and running the ball really well before he got hurt. So the assumption is, that second year after a knee injury is the year where you can kind of get back to that 100% where you were before the knee injury. So I like the potential of JK being fully healthy and seeing that breakaway speed that we didn't really see last year.
Yeah, good point.
He was getting run down in the 30 yards downfield, and you're seeing him getting run down by safeties and corners. So yeah,
amazing how well he did in a year where he left so many yards on the field. And that is an area for improvement. I think that the possibility of getting him in space to make some plays as a receiver is something that Monken will explore in terms of the offense. I would be also concerned that the Ravens might try and ramp him up over the first few weeks in terms of his carries, just because his time in camp has been relatively limited. Perhaps, obviously, he didn't play at all during the preseason. I don't think that'll ever happen again in his career, would be my guess, by the way, regardless of who he's playing for.
Yes.
But anyway, there is a possibility he's going to have a few fewer carries early in this season. I think if you wanted to point to other things that are maybe in his favor, is the Ravens don't have a very obvious third down back. I think that they probably will go with Hill to start the year on that, but I've made the comment often that Hill is not really on the efficient frontier as a pass blocker and receiving threat, or at least he wasn't under Roman. Maybe that will change because of better space creation under Monken. So maybe Hill ends up being the guy on third down. And then if you're talking about JK being a 2-down back or a 2.25 down back or 2.5 down back, as we might think of it, I don't see him being Ray Rice. Let's put it that way, in terms of being a guy who rushes for a ton of yards, is also, a central focus of the passing game. But hey, he doesn't have to be Ray Rice. He needs to be J.K. Dobbins. He needs to be a guy who probably, if an ideal situation, he would increase his carries by about 25 to 30% over his rookie year, have, let's say 20 to 25 receptions. I think I'd be pretty thrilled with. If he could do those things, that would be terrific. I think that circumstances are going to kind of conspire about him in terms of the rate characteristics specifically, that he won't rush for the same sort of yards per carry. Love J.K. Dobbins. I actually hope they can work out a deal. I don't think it's actually likely, but I hope they can work out a deal to keep him around. I think he'd be a really nice cornerstone piece. But in his case, I think that regression is probably what I would bet on this year.
Yeah. I mean, I think, there might be some regression as far as if you're just looking at yards per carry, just on the number of carries. Like we were saying earlier, a 6 yard per carry average is really hard to maintain for the more carries you have. So
sure.
I think a 5 yard per carry season is an excellent season for pretty much any back. So, and especially considering now, we don't have Roman, and he was, I'd say at least 20%, enhancing the run game just by him alone. So I think it's important to think about that as well.
Completely agree. And I think a 5 yard per carry season would be excellent. Over under it for me, Brandon. Let me put it in those terms. And over under the hardest thing, the rate statistic, in terms of his yards per carry. Where would you bet it either way?
I went over under. I would actually put an over under at 4.7.
I was going to say 4.8. So we're right in the same neighborhood, and all that means is we both still like JK. We both think he can still contribute to the offense. I just define that as regression.
Yeah. And if he hits 4.7, that's better than 75% of the backs in the league.
Sure.
So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, it's important.
All right. Well, let's hear your number 2 guy.
Okay. My number 2 guy is Marcus Williams. Don't get me wrong. I think he's still going to be a very good player. It was just last season he was playing at peak Ed Reed level. And I just don't think he'll be able to keep up that pace. He's a very, very good player. I mean, he's certainly Pro Bowl level type of player. Just being able to repeat the type of season that he was having last year before the injury and then even after is just a little bit unrealistic to think about and to consider.
Okay, well, first of all, completely agree with you if we're talking rate statistics. So when we start about rate statistics, you cannot project out reasonably Marcus Williams' year last year to a full season, because he'd have been very close to the DPOY voting. He would have been right in there with some other great players in terms of what he'd done. So I would agree with you. He won't match it on a rate basis. Would it be reasonable to think that his aggregate level of contribution over a 17-game season might be still significantly higher than it was last year, even with the great rates in a limited number of games?
Sure, absolutely. He's going to be a big part of this defense, and he really patrols the deep middle of the field very well and can break on deep passes down the sideline and everything. He's going to be a key contributor, and there's no doubt about that. It's just to expect, I mean, the pace he was on last year, I mean, he would have probably gotten close to 10 interceptions or more.
Right. Yep.
And that's a little bit optimistic, but I think, you know, six interceptions and a lot of pass breakups and and just challenging deeper passes would make a great season for him.
Yeah. All right. Very, very, I completely agree with you. And that's actually very similar to the Dobbins pick. A great player who we don't think can possibly maintain rate statistics over a longer season for various reasons. Yeah.
Sure.
All right. I will go to my number 2 guy, and it's another similar situation, although I've got a few other things that go with this, and that's Roquan Smith. Great player. Look, I have nothing bad to say about Roquan Smith. The only concern I have is that his second half of the 2022 season was so much better than anything he ever did in Chicago that it's very hard for me to project that over a full season. So if you're basically looking to double whatever Roquan Smith did in the second half, I don't think that's going to work out. And it's a similar thing to Dobbins. It's a little bit different in his case. He's definitely the leader of the defense. He'll make tons of tackles. I expect him to continue at a high tackle rate. I think there's good reason to believe, and especially after seeing a player like Mustafa come to the Ravens and play so well within a very structured offensive line scheme, it's easy to see how a player like Roquan Smith, who had all the star attributes, came to Baltimore and then played at a higher level. I can't justify how much better a player he was in Baltimore than what he was in Chicago. So my guess would be Roquan Smith probably had a career half in the last half a season. I hope that's not the case. The Ravens have got him now for a number of years. Hopefully he's almost as good as he was last year, and that would be fine. He'd be earning every nickel of his contract if he was 92% of the player that he was last year. But I do think there'll be some regression in him. And again, I know these picks are not going to be popular, but that's just the way I feel about it.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. Like, Roquan was having a sensational season when he came over here. It's hard to expect that level of play for an entire season. But without a doubt, I still think he's probably going to be first or second team All Pro, Pro Bowl player and be playing at a Pro Bowl level. There won't be any reservation about the contract that he signed.
Well, let me just say this. If he's first or second team All Pro, if he's first team All Pro, I'm definitely wrong about regression, because that would be him basically repeating his season. Even if it was slightly less statistically, it would still be everything I would hope for in terms of that. If he's a Pro Bowler but not All Pro, that would be some regression in all likelihood. And I don't know. Is it going to happen? I don't know. I can't say for sure. It's just he had such a leap forward last year. I tend to think things tend to regress normally to a mean, and I just think he's playing above the level he ever did, and that's my reason. So I appreciate your thoughts on who's your number 1 guy.
My number 1 guy is Marlon Humphrey. Unfortunately, he's out for at least a month with the foot surgery. I don't believe he's going to fall off a cliff when he gets back, but I mean, expectations that he would be every bit as good as he was last year and throughout his career with a foot injury, playing cornerback, all that cutting. I think it's just a little bit unrealistic for a cornerback to keep up that level of play if that foot injury is going to last. And
that's a completely reasonable expectation of regression. Obviously, a guy who's played at a very high level, in particular last year, was very good. I can't find any words that would disagree with what you're saying at all. In terms of the foot injury, it's very, very concerning. I'll move on to my number 1 guy. Obviously, you don't like to predict a worse season for anybody, but the guy who, unfortunately, I'm afraid is not going to have 100% of the skill set necessary to do his job anymore is Tyus Bowser. And Tyus Bowser is such a critical part of the Ravens defense at Sam linebacker. I had some comparison statistics I put out there on Twitter today, but Tyus Bowser has dropped to cover in over 32% of the past snaps he's been in career. Okay, 32%. By comparison, Jadeveon Clowney, who admittedly a 4-3 end, but a lot of teams that have a 4-3 end, they like to play games to try and drop an end, zone blitz from the other side, bring a safety, bring a slot corner, just mix things up. Ends drop as well. Well, Jadeveon Clowney has only, and I have the number right here, he's only dropped a cover on 3.3% of his career snaps. So approximately 1/10 as often Clowney drops. Basically, the Ravens are playing without a Sam linebacker to start the season. That's going to take a tremendous amount of flexibility away from the Ravens pass rush in terms of being able to rush off the slot and whatnot. Tyus Bowser's injury is killing the Ravens early in the year. I hope he's back, in week 5. But if he's not, if he is, I should say, I can't guarantee that he'll be the same player. I don't think anybody can in terms of being able to cover at the same level and really provide value. I think teams will definitely test him right off the fact, trying to see if he's really healthy and not. But we'll see in terms of that. Really sad because one of my favorite players. By the way, the other thing that came up about Clowney is creating the comparison to Bowser. Bowser has 19.5 career sacks. So he has sacked the quarterback on 1.7% of his rush snaps career. What percentage would you guess that Clowney has sacked the quarterback?
Ooh.
Sorry to do this to you.
Yeah. No, it's fine. To be honest, I've never had the highest opinion of Clowney, but I'm guessing he'll probably be about 1%.
1.3. So Bowser has sacked the quarterback when he's rushed the quarterback more often. And obviously Bowser provides a lot of flexibility. That's a generally misunderstood value of Sam linebackers is how much they do for your other rushers. I was actually starting a project just this afternoon, and I decided this is taking too long. I don't know if I really want to go all the way through it, to look at every single sack from week 9 on when he came back against New Orleans last year and see on how many of those did he drop to cover. So did he create an opportunity for somebody else? And in particular, if it's the slot corner rushing and Bowser is dropping, that's very strong evidence of Bowser's value.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, and I completely agree with everything you said. Like an Achilles the year before, and now this knee injury, whatever it specifically is. I haven't heard exactly what it is, but it's, yeah, I mean, especially, he is really an athletic linebacker. He really relies on his speed and agility to get out into space and to move around. And if you lose that, it can turn ugly real quick. So, yeah.
All right. Well, we got through the bad news, and hopefully no one has turned off the show now because they hate our regression picks. But let's go to the breakout picks, and those are the fun ones.
Okay. My number 3 is Rashad Bateman. I know everyone is excited about the new toys that we have in Zay and OBJ, but I think Bateman's development is probably the most important for the offense and for the future of the Ravens. One, he's out of those 3, he's the biggest receiver out of the 3, and I would consider probably him the best route runner, or at least equal or on par with Beckham in that respect. I think he's the best option to be the X receiver. He's got the speed, he's got the route running ability. That he's shown the ability to be a true number 1 receiver. The things that have kind of held him back are the injuries and a little bit of consistency. He's had drops here and there. He's running either in the wrong space or maybe not on the same page as Lamar at all times. But I mean, I think this is obviously a critical year for Bateman, and I think his ability to come in and shake off this foot injury and be the guy that we all think he could have been these last couple of years, I think is all right on the table for him. And especially considering the way Zay has looked and then OBJ's looked in practice, it's going to take a lot of attention away from him, and that's going to give him a lot of one-on-one opportunities for him to make plays.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited about what Bateman can do, and Bateman is certainly absolutely critical to this team. I thought about putting him on my list. There are a couple things that told me not to do it. One is the return from injury, and in his case, when it's a Liz Frank injury, it's always serious in terms of how it impacts the next season. It is a critical year, a contract year for him in a sense, because he's playing for his fifth-year option this year. So if he has a big year, the Ravens will pay him his fifth-year option, presumably, and if they think they can afford it, and then he'll be in Baltimore for 2 more years after this. I think you're absolutely right about additional space being created. That he's a terrific beneficiary of that, particularly. And then I looked at the other thing is he already had 10.2 yards per target in the limited playing time he had last year, which is fantastic. It's one of the highest numbers in Ravens history. There's only 15 catches on 28 targets. So he does it exclusively with his yards per reception effectively, and not with the catch rate component of that, because he only caught 53% of the balls thrown his way. But still, outstanding player, has to be a key component, I think, if the Ravens offense is going to be moving in top gear. I think ideally, and I think we might have had this discussion before, Beckham takes a back seat to the two of those guys. That each of them takes a big step forward. And if Beckham is a 400 or 500 yard receiver who scores a few touchdowns, good red zone threat, good mentor, I'm cool with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, I think Bateman and Zay have to be, given every opportunity to show what they can do and be the top options at wide receiver for the team. And yes, Beckham isn't the long-term answer. This is probably going to be his only year here, but if he can just draw attention away, be a great third option in the offense, which I think is absolutely possible, and it's totally reasonable. I think you have a really nice trio of receivers here.
Mm-hmm. All right, can we move on to my number 3 guy?
Sure.
Let's go with, okay, this is the one that is maybe a little bit surprising people. I'm taking Ardarius Washington. I believe he is going to be the slot corner. I don't think anybody is going to return that is going to easily take that job from him. Arthur Mollett made the team. That alone is surprising to me that he's around. He does have some guaranteed money. There were reasons for it, but they kept him over Caillou Kelly. Obviously DaCosta was very straightforward about it today. He says the reason he didn't make the team is that he didn't make the team. It's disappointing that he got claimed, kind of thing. But Arthur Mollett wasn't at camp really. He was a vested veteran, so they would have lost $220,000, but they could have kept him around and re-signed him to a vet min contract. Would have eaten a little bit of money to do it, but still, if you want the guy, it's not too much, presumably. And I don't know that Mollett, coming off an injury, was a guy who was going to draw a lot of value. But anyway, the biggest question by far the Ravens answered during the preseason was they have their slot corner, and it's Ardarius Washington. They're not. I don't believe we're going to see Hamilton back there again. I think any of the we don't have anybody at slot corner, so we need to bring Hamilton up because Stone is a pretty good safety on the back end. I think that's all out the window. And in fact, when you see the fact they only have 3 safeties on the roster, you pretty much know they're only going to play Hamilton on the back end. Ardarius Washington is a safety in name only. He's a slot corner. That's what he is. Now, in terms of what he brings to the field, we saw a lot of it during the preseason, but we knew a lot of it before because the Ravens had similar players, and because I think they expected Washington to be this way when they signed him as a priority free agent. Absolute whirling dervish of a player. The guy who reminds me most of is Corey Ivy in terms of.
Film Study is brought to you by Factor. With the busy fall season just around the corner, you might be looking for wholesome, convenient meals for those jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up fast with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes, so all you have to do is heat and enjoy. then get back to crushing your goals. Refresh your healthy habits without missing a beat. And with Factor, you can rest assured you're making a sustainable choice. We offset 100% of our delivery emissions, source 100% renewable electricity for our production sites and offices, and feature sustainably sourced seafood in all of our meals. This August, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered to your door and ready in just 2 minutes. No prep, no mess. Head to factormeals.com/Ravens50 and use code Ravens50 to get that 50% off. That's code Ravens50 at factormeals.com/Ravens50 to get 50% off.
His aggressiveness, throwing his body around, making plays, got terrific hand-eye coordination that we saw during the preseason with all those passes defensed, including the one that I still can't believe where he's basically got his chest on the ground and he reaches up and he flips the ball out of the hand. Yeah.
Knocks the ball out right at the end. Yeah, that was incredible play. Incredible play. Yeah.
So what do you think about Ardarius?
Yeah, I think he has really developed into the player that, we thought he could be coming out. Like, I thought he was worthy of like a third or fourth round pick coming out of college. And he, the only concern with him is his size, but he is a really tough and feisty corner. And he fights through the ball, fights through the receiver, is physical, doesn't allow himself to get pushed around. And yeah, he should get every opportunity to win that job and to be the guy for the whole season. He's really showed it. He really showed it in that second preseason game as well. Yeah.
Who do you like as your number 2 guy?
My number 2 guy is who I think was the defensive star of the preseason, and that's Travis Jones. With those first 2 preseason games, he was absolutely unblockable. And, especially considering Washington had their starting offensive line out there, they couldn't block him when they were double teamed. There was one time he got double teamed at the goal line, and he still came and was able to stop the running back cold for like a 2-yard gain. He's shown just a lot of power, and he's quicker than the typical nose guard. I think he'd be a great 3 tech in on run downs and possibly even on pass downs as well. And he's got the footwork, he's got the strength. And his ability to move is going to just open up everything for the outside pass rushers as well as Matabike. Because if he's taking on double teams, that means you're getting one-on-one situations for everybody else, and that's exactly what you want.
Now, he played about 30% of the snaps last year, and I expect that number to increase greatly because I expect to see a lot of this 1-3 with Pierce at the 1 and him at the 3. That's why it's so important that Pierce does not get hurt. This is one of the very big reasons. But I got to tell you, hearing you mention Travis Jones and realizing he wasn't on my list is just a major whiff for me. I can't believe, with my love of Travis Jones, that I didn't have him as my number 1 guy, frankly, given the list I've got. But it's nice for the show to have some difference of opinion here. And I just completely agree with your pick. I think it's better than the ones I had. So if I were McDonald right now, I would be looking for every opportunity I could to get Travis Jones one-on-one. You could do that a lot of different ways. You could do it even if he's at nose by creating some of a blitz that goes through the gap to the offside of him, because that will create appeal. You can use him as an under guy and loop around him. And then, boy, he'll get some fantastic underneath opportunities. I can't even imagine the difficulty trying to block a man of Jones's size and athleticism and strength when you've got a 45-degree angle block on him between 2 linemen effectively. Now, to make that happen, he's got to have a little bit of first step ability to get into that gap, obviously, and create those problems. But boy, you peel off that with and leave him one-on-one with whoever's got that 45-degree. It's not going to last long. I don't think it'll last long at all. And it probably will magnify some of the value we've seen from his rip move in particular this preseason, which I think has just been terrific. Is the offensive linemen who've been against him, they don't even look like they've been trying, and their arms just go flying up.
He's been absolutely dominant in the preseason. Very, very exciting player to watch. I think if the ability, to even make Oweh better, because if you consider you run a stunt with him and Oweh, you push Travis out, outside and have Oweh loop underneath. With Oweh's speed and ability to burst, like he could get to the quarterback real quick, and it'd be a nightmare for offensive lines.
I want to get your opinion on this because I just heard you say something that as a defensive lineman, you would have Travis Jones typically be the under in these situations, right? I'm not saying there aren't big belly roll guys who can loop also, because that'd be pretty cool to try with Travis Jones. That's something James Jones in the 1990s for the Ravens actually stunted more than any other lineman in Ravens history. And he's a nose tackle. But in terms of Travis Jones, he would typically be the under guy.
Yeah, he'd be the under guy, and Oweh do the looping.
The under guy, and you've watched a ton of film, I know, in your life, but the under guy typically gets a lot of the pass rush opportunity with that. A lot of people think it's the looper who gets the real advantage, and a lot of times not. It's the under guy who.
It's because they they're able to confuse the offensive line. They don't necessarily know who to block, and also, with them trying to pass off, that opens up the ability to just get in there and get to the quarterback as well. Yeah.
All right. Well, I love your pick. Your pick is the pick of the show. I will bow down to that right away. But my number 2, I like also. I like John Simpson to be a breakout player for the Ravens. Now, there's a few things that have happened. I've talked about this on a couple of shows. I'm sure if you've listened, if you're one of the religious listeners, I know that's a lot of the listeners on the show are the really religious ones. Thank you, first of all, for listening to the show so regularly. But he's had a marvelous preseason in terms of avoiding penalties. And I think he's done a very good job in terms of his ability to play both zone and power. He's by far the most comfortable looking lineman. Admittedly, all the Ravens regular linemen haven't been out there. So Linderbaum and the other guys, they didn't play during the preseason at all. So Simpson is the one regular who really stands out. Looks completely comfortable playing, zone play to the right, playing off his left arm in the way you normally would. It's just seems that his spacing is good with the other linemen. I just see a guy's very comfortable. There have been pass offs. He's done well with that. He's done well on combination blocks. Didn't have a single negative event the entire preseason. And for me, that's any kind of pressure. And I use a more difficult standard than PFF, and he still got none. No quarterback hits, no sacks, no penetrations where someone took somebody down for a loss in the run game. And he didn't have any penalties, which might be the biggest thing. So 1,545 snaps coming into this year. He'd had 17 penalties. 2 of those were false starts, 13 holds, and 2 personal fouls, which are, as you know, theoretically correctable for players. And he seems to be doing a very good job. You can really see this in terms of releasing blocks at the appropriate time, particularly in the run game, because I think that's the place that's more important. In the pass game, offensive linemen pretty much like to hold on for dear life anyway, even if they get the hold. But in the run game, when that runner is hitting the corner, your guy is usually out of the play anyway. God, take your hands off once they get outside the frame. So with Simpson, I just think we've seen a lot, and the Ravens are so depending on him. I don't know if they're completely depending on him, because obviously if everybody stays healthy, this is going to be one hellacious offensive line. But the potential weakness in this offensive line is in that left A gap, where Linderbaum has some pass blocking deficiencies, and Powers was fantastic last year. So Simpson's trying to replace that, and he's going to need to be pretty good for the Ravens offensive line to be the kind of force it was last year. And I think I'm predicting him to exceed expectations in that regard.
Yeah. Well, first, I want to thank you as a former defensive lineman that you acknowledge that offensive linemen hold on every play.
Yes.
So, yes, I want that's the most important thing. But Simpson, he looks like going to be a heck of an addition for this team. I mean, Powers had a fantastic year last year, and you would expect, some kind of drop off, but the way he's come in and played and really taken off, taken over the position, I think he's going to be a really solid addition, and we may or may not see that much of a drop off between from Powers to him. And yeah, it's great to see. Like, he was a really solid player in college, and the struggles are, were a little bit of a surprise, but I think this also might go credit to the offensive line coach,
Del Sanders,
Joe D. Yes, is him working with him and being able to correct those holding penalties, at least so far, is going to be huge.
Yeah. One of the things that kind of struck me in this whole time is the Ravens, their fans and the media in particular, were pretty much taken by the entire Saleh Simpson competition. And Saleh obviously came in during the OTAs, and people were out there. Vinny Serrato is one guy who I was on his show, and he was sure Saleh had it. He was absolutely sure of it. And it was intended to be a competition the whole way, but the way it was structured seems to be so much of a motivational element for Simpson. I think it's basically a master class in the topic for NFL coaches, because you bring in this guy. Simpson it just had to be stewing in his own blood to watch this guy. And Simpson seems like the nicest guy when you get him at the podium, but they obviously, coming from Oakland, it's not unreasonable to think there were a bunch of excuses involved in why he had so many penalties and why he wasn't as good, because they kept switching systems and kept switching positions on him. And those are legitimate. Some of that is legitimate and some of it's not. And you can't allow the player to just feel sorry for himself. He's got to take a step forward. And I think that's exactly how the Ravens engineered this. They kind of knew Simpson was going to be the guy. They gave Saleh the first opportunity, and then Simpson came in and basically had a perfect preseason. I'm not saying every play was perfect in camp. I'm not saying everything he did was perfect, but they orchestrated it so that for the second week of the preseason or the first week, I think he started the first game of the preseason. So it was during camp, they made the shift that he'd be the first lineman. And then, this is your big chance, John. Don't blow it. And then we saw him play great. And Saleh honestly is not ready for an NFL field at this point. It was incredible motivation. I tip my hat to the Ravens coaches for coming up with this. My guess would be it's probably Harbaugh himself and not somebody else, not Monken and not Dallas Sanders would be my guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't believe Saleh had all the first team reps back in the OTAs and then the beginning of the training camp, because Harbaugh just never gives first team reps to rookies. Ronnie Stanley didn't get first team reps coming out. Same with Marlon. Same with
Jonathan Ogden. And it's just not Harbaugh, but Jonathan Ogden had to start a year at left guard.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And so I think almost infamously, Orlando Brown Jr. when he came in,
yes,
he didn't start for half the season. And everybody was screaming, "Why isn't he playing? Why isn't he playing? He's clearly better than James Hurst." But well, I can't believe he's still in the league. But that's another story. But yes, so I just never believed Saleh was going to be the guy, and then this came around. I was like, oh, he really put a mind trick and put some motivation. I thought Cleveland was also going to be given his chance at the starting job too. But it looks like it's going to be Simpson. So yeah.
While I got you here, obviously Mustipher played great. Obviously the preseason as well. Maybe not. Obviously, I will assert that. You can certainly disagree if you feel differently. I'm absolutely shocked they let him go, but they've obviously by hook or crook, he is a vested veteran because he seems like a fourth year player right now to me. That's how I tally up his years of service. Somebody else can tell me why that's not correct. But they have apparently, I would think, a handshake agreement in place with Mustipher, or I think we'd be hearing about him visiting with other teams and possibly going somewhere else, because he certainly played well enough that he'd be in the top 7 linemen for some NFL team right now.
Yeah. Is he on the practice squad?
Practice squad.
Yeah.
Which means they're probably keeping him there for the first week of the season, right? Because your handshake guys you would bring right back.
Right. I was about to say there's something about vested veterans get their salaries fully guaranteed for the whole thing.
Yeah, only if they make the team in week 1, and if they don't, then they are playing week to week. Just lost Brandon here for a minute. I think he's coming back.
Yep.
All right.
I'm back. Sorry about that. Yep.
No problem at all. So let's move on and do your number 1 guy.
Okay. My number 1 guy is Kyle Hamilton. The last year he was able to find a role as a slot corner and really thrived in it. And this whole offseason, going back to OTAs and then in preseason and then in training camp and preseason, he's been back at strong safety. And I think probably the number 1 goal for the Ravens defense this year is to figure out where Kyle Hamilton can become that superstar player that I think he can absolutely become. And it's looking like strong safety. So I know you said this earlier, and I completely agree. I think if Kyle Hamilton is that strong safety and they think that he's going to be that superstar at strong safety, you keep him there no matter, almost no matter what, as far as whatever's going on at slot corner. And I mean, I think, that height that he has, that his instincts, everything that he's got going on, I think he can really step up and be a Pro Bowl caliber player this year.
Yeah, I'm extremely excited about him as well. I did not have him on my list, but he's on one of my honorable mentions for the defense. And I guess I would warn folks only this, and maybe pose this as a question to you too: is if he's at strong safety and he is learning a new position, we know he was tremendously adaptable to go in and slot corner. They're probably, given his speed and some of the other characteristics that seem to work better at strong safety, I would project that he could be better, certainly, but he was so damn good at slot corner. It's hard for me to project more, a higher degree of value this year from Hamilton, given, but it certainly is possible. Voss calls him the queen of the chessboard in terms of being the piece that the Ravens need to figure out what has the most value. He is
perfect analogy, I think.
Yeah, he's the Derwin James of the Ravens defense in a lot of ways, in terms of a guy who can be moved around in a lot of places. And I agree. I certainly hope he's going to be fantastic. If he steps back and he's only as good as he was last year at slot corner for a full season at safety, that would be fine, by the way. That would be outstanding. And he might be already in Pro Bowl consideration if that were to happen. I guess part of my reason for not including on the list is that I already have such ridiculously high expectations for him that it's hard for me to imagine him going higher.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
All right. Now, I'll go to my number 1 guy, and I thought about this a little bit, but I think he may not do this in terms of his own personal statistic, but the guy I think will have the greatest impact on the Baltimore Ravens in 2023 is Zay Flowers. I think he's just absolutely central to Monken's offense becoming Monken's offense with this personnel group. So the offensive line is more or less in place, a pretty good one. They have a set of non-dangerous speed receivers in Odell, and to a little bit lesser degree in Bateman. We'll see what Bateman really brings to the table after the injury in terms of speed. Great route runner. Speed never been the very top element that he has in his game. And then they have some other gadget players who have terrific speed. 4 guys, in fact, between Mitchell, Hill, Duvernay, and who am I forgetting? Flowers. So yeah, so they have tremendous speed guys, but Flowers is the one guy who's absolutely critical to take the top off the defense. And what taking the top off the defense means is that he's assigned safety help almost every play. If you want to go back and look at what that means and what I hope that means against the Baltimore Ravens, Go back and watch how they defended Randy Moss in the 2009 AFC wildcard game at New England. They basically, and they never did this in any other game that I'm aware of, put Ed Reed over the top of the corner who was covering Randy Moss the entire game and said, we dare you to throw it to anybody else. And of course, they knocked the teeth out of the New England Patriots that day, ran the ball 52 times. They won the game despite Flacco being 4 of 10 passing, because you need to pass when you can run the ball right down the throat of the opponent. And I just, the way they handled Randy Moss was so special that day that I thought, if Zay Flowers becomes the receiver that you cannot work without safety help just because he's too sudden for any individual to do, you're always having to bracket him. That's going to totally change the offense between him and also the attention you have to pay to Lamar Jackson still, and what that means for the middle of the football field and all those one-on-one matchups. And honestly, at this point, I think it's all up to Lamar in terms of taking advantage of that.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I think we saw a show from Zay, his those first 2 preseason games, and he looks like an absolute difference maker. Not only for the deep speed, but also his quickness and his ability to make people miss in space. I mean,
yeah,
a 7-8 yard, pattern can turn into a 20-30 yard game by him making somebody miss. And having an additional guy out there with Lamar that, can scare a defense and, take a short play and make it a long one is going to be so vital for this offense. Yeah.
Now, I've got an interesting story to tell about camp that went on, because they do one-on-one drills, which is one of the really cool ones. It's very difficult for a defensive back to win in the one-on-one drill.
Almost not fair for a corner.
Almost not fair. And it's particularly not fair with Zay Flowers. But that particular day, Kayvon Seymour lined up 3 times opposite Zay Flowers. And the first 2 times, he was dusted. He got lost on a move once. He might have gotten outraced once, but I don't remember the exact plays. I did put him up on the show at the time, but it looked terrible. The third play, Seymour got up in press coverage of him, got both hands on Flowers, and basically locked onto his jersey and fought him at the line of scrimmage for about 5 seconds. Finally, they blew the play dead. The entire defensive back group ran up and were patting him all over the shoulders. I go, yeah, we got Zay Flowers. Yeah. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, very, very exciting player. Very excited to see what he can. Yeah. He's got just exceptional change of direction, quickness. Yeah. I was at the Washington practice the second day, and his ability to just move in and out, like defenders can't get a hand on him, and they can't keep up with him. He's going to be exciting to see. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about other players who you had on an honorable mention list before we cut off on either the regression or the breakout list?
Sure. So regression, honorable mention guys. I just had Gus Edwards. He's been incredibly consistent for his whole career. 5 yards a carry every year. Wonder where he looked a step slow to me. He's, in the preseason, and I wonder if that knee injury is, kind of hurt him a little bit. And I think his carries could potentially go down with Justice Hill and even Keaton Mitchell possibly wanting more speed on, and we don't necessarily know what Monken's offense is going to look like, and what his role is going to be. I'd still love him in the 6-minute offense in the fourth quarter to be that hammer. Him and Patrick Ricard just hammering down a defense in the fourth quarter to close out games, but I guess we'll have to see exactly what his role will be.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. The one I had was Devin Duvernay, and it's not because I don't think Duvernay will be an important gadget player on this team. It's just there's not enough balls to go around right now to the number of receivers. Andrews, has been sulking a little bit recently, and some of it may be injury related, some of it may be position in the offense related, some of it may be he's upset that he did. By the way, for most of camp, it seemed to me like he's still been Lamar's favorite target. But in past camps, he's been unbelievably Lamar's favorite target in terms of it's read one, read two Andrews, or read one Andrews on a lot of plays, or read one, I'm thinking of running Andrews. It'll be a very good thing for his rate statistics that he's not the only guy to throw to on an extended play, as great a connection as they have. And he'll still get some of those targets, but Beckham's going to get some, Bateman's going to get some, Flowers may get some, and any number of other speed guys, whether that's, a Keaton Mitchell or a Hill, would be good candidates to get them too.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would not expect his raw numbers to be, as robust as they've been the last couple of years, just because there's so many more weapons out there that, you have to be able to spread the ball around more. You want the offense to spread the ball around more. So it might be his quantity goes down, but his quality goes up as far as the quality targets and more open space that he gets because of what everybody else is doing around him.
It's kind of just the opposite of, say, J.K. Dobbins, where the quantity we hope goes up, and we can't help but think the quality will go down, or the rate statistics anyway, not necessarily the quality.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
How about on the breakout side? Who did you have as your honorable mentions?
So I had Odafe Owe.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I think he's really shown a lot in camp as far as really learning how to use all that athleticism that he has, and I think he can be an absolute terror if he improves those pass rush moves and just really improve that get off in order to get around the tackle and get in space and just put a ton of pressures on the quarterback. And he had a lot, even though he wasn't finishing with sacks last year. He did have a good amount of pressures, and that's what you want to see. Is you want to see pressures, and inevitably when pressures go up, those sack numbers will go up as well.
Right. It's a very stable statistic, as they would say. It's one where very predictive of the next year's total. And so, I hope he gets a different distribution among sacks, quarterback hits, and pressures. But he had a lot of pressures this last year. Hopefully, also playing on the rush side. And again, Bowser's out for 4 weeks. I don't know who's going to play on that side, but it still could be Owe for part of it. That's not the way they were doing it in camp. Most of camp, it was Owe on the rush side and Ajabo moving over to the Sam side. Ajabo's not ready to play rundowns at this point. He needs to be on as a situational pass rusher, would be my feeling. But always an excellent choice. I had three guys. Matabike, who people have already predicted for breakout season so often that it seems like it's unfair. I think he's a good chance to have a fewer number of snaps, or a fewer percentage of snaps anyway. It might still be more snaps because the Ravens are going to play more defensive snaps. But I think he could be a very fresh pass rusher, and I hope that's where his efforts are focused. I think Broderick Washington they're going to rely on more this year, and he probably won't have a real flashy year in terms of statistics, but I think he's going to be very effective for the Ravens in terms of what he does. And then even read. This is one of the problems, by the way. Maureen does my notes for me because I can't read my own handwriting. And my third name here, it's Hamilton. Is a safe enough pick for a guy who would do well. Anyway, other things to say about this before we log off?
No, not really. I think we about covered it. Yeah.
All right, outstanding, Brandon. This is so much fun to do with you. It's one of the really good shows I think we've done together, and I appreciate you doing it. Where can people talk with you online?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Brandon Croxton 5, and looking forward to the season. I'll be in the stands week 1. So.
All right, outstanding. Other folks out there, if you wanted to be on a film study short, hit me up with a DM on Twitter. They're always open. Love to hear from you. I'm still sitting on 4 tickets for opening day. If anybody wants those, DM me, and we'll talk about that as well. I guess that's it as far as that goes. Brandon, thanks again for joining us.
All right, great. Thanks for having me.
And we'll talk to you next time on Film Study.